Hi, everybody. Everybody's on. Let's see. So amazing. We've got a few people coming in. Wow, we've got a lot of people coming in. This is great. Amazing. All right, phenomenal. So I think we've got a few people. And I'm sure we're going to get more coming in, but for now, hello to everyone and welcome to our first conversation in our quarterly panel series. I'm very excited to have everyone here this evening. My name is Jennifer Ali and I work at the Blackstone Group, but tonight I'm here representing as the co-chair of Mercado Global's East Coast Impact Council. This organization is very dear and near to me, and it ties into my Latin roots and my focus on empowering women. And so tonight, I'm really excited to have an amazing panel of inspiring leaders. Kate Hogan, Ruth Alvarez de Gallo, and Nikki Innocent are all here tonight. And we'll be discussing impactful strategies for success, philanthropic initiatives, and the development of future leaders. So to give everybody a little bit of background, so first we have Ruth, who is Mercado Global's co-founder and executive director, who has overseen Mercado Global's growth from a small nonprofit working with a dozen artisans in Guatemala's highlands to its recognition as an innovator in social enterprise, partnering with hundreds of artisans and a number of major international specialty realty chains and catalogs. So Ruth, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jen.
Next, we have Kate Hogan, who is a managing director and chief internal auditor at the Blackstone Group. In her role, she reports directly to the audit committee and the board of directors, and she's leading the firm's global internal audit practice. Prior to this role, Kate was the head of operations in the Hedge Fund Solutions Group. In 2018, Kate was appointed as the diversity champion of finance at Blackstone and spearheaded the Women in Finance Group in 2019. Kate, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, we have Nikki Innocent, the CEO, lead coach, and facilitator at Nikki Innocent Coaching. She is a humanitarian activist, keynote speaker, and social entrepreneur with a focus on women leadership and diversity inclusion. So all, thank you here, and I will turn it over to the co-chair, Claudia, to begin.
Thank you, Jen. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Claudia Montefar. Very excited to be joining the conversation tonight with these three incredible women, and really speaking further to their backgrounds and, their keys to success within their respective industries. In just mirroring Jen's earlier note, I also come from a Latin background as well. And it's really amazing to see this organization that Ruth, has founded and its, movement towards empowering women, and especially in today's economic society. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit about the impact strategies for success. Ruth, what or who influenced your journey, to become where you are today?
Well, I think my earliest role model was my grandmother, who was very involved in various social justice movements. And some of my earliest memories of her taking me to different protests and community events and telling me about things that she was doing to try to help make the world a better place and her community a better place. And that really inspired me and caused me to spend time throughout my life thinking about what could I do to take this, piece of land or this place where I am and do something to leave it better than I found it. And then as I became older and first had the chance to go to Guatemala while I was in college, I met these amazing Indigenous women in some of the first communities that we partnered with. And these were women who had never had the chance to go to school and had faced so many obstacles in their lives, but they had survived and they had provided for their families and fought and built lives. And for me, they were just such a source of inspiration. So those are some of the people that I've seen as role models in my life.
Absolutely. And it's always more empowering to feel as though you can give back, especially to, such women in their circumstances as well. Looking back to when you started Mercado, what was your definition of success for the organization, and has that changed today?
Well, when I first started the organization, it came out of a sense of urgency around working with these amazing women, and they were facing this very immediate, urgent challenge of their daughters were not in school. They could not afford to send their daughters to school. And we had to figure out a way to help them send their daughters to school. And so it started with, let's just start selling their product in the US so that they can earn income. And the first place they're putting that money is sending more of their kids to school. And as the organization evolved, one of the things I realized is that I think actually in many ways, you know, our Mercado Global is about helping women become agents of change within their communities and in their families, and secure the change and vision that they have for their lives and for their children. But in many ways, it's also about making our core values as an organization real and lived. And our core values are authenticity, partnership, and respect. And I think that, to me, I always feel that we're succeeding most when we're embodying those values, when the women we're working with are getting to partner with women around the world that are purchasing their products, and our donors and our clients that are partnering with them to help get their kids into school and create a better world. And these women, rather than be victims of racism and of poverty, are respected in their communities and by their families. So I think success really is when we're embodying those core values.
Absolutely. And that's definitely, you know, displayed in terms of how the company has really pivoted in terms of today's, you know, COVID crisis, and really giving back, you know, in more ways than one. So, you know, amazing, amazing work.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Kate. Kate, you are a leader in a highly competitive industry. What advice would you give the audience in cultivating their vision of success?
Well, it really is hard to top Ruth. I mean, you hear that story and it's just absolutely incredible, and it's just fantastic. But it goes to show that success is, and the vision of success is really in each person's journey, and it's an individual definition. And so, you know, when I think of success, it's a bit of a holistic view of, you know, I think of health, I think of my relationships, I think of philanthropic activities. You know, giving back is where you can get some of your biggest rewards. Of course, your career, being rewarded, appreciated, challenged. But it's a bit of a whole picture of, you know, finding what really is going to give you, help you thrive and live that life you're looking for. But you know, what I would say is whatever people choose, wherever they go, you know, take your foot, put it on the gas, and just drop it all the way down. Go all in, 100%. And don't be afraid of failure, because that's part of the journey. You can't possibly know the doors you're going to open for yourself without taking that time to put yourself out there. You know, and I think about the journey itself is, you know, bring determination to whatever it is, and positive energy and a teamwork mentality, and have the intent to just really, for me, it's like making it better than I found it. Whatever that is, make it better. And I would say, when you're thinking about that journey and the vision of that journey, you know, setting goals for yourself and mapping them out. You know, don't underestimate the value of actually writing things down for yourself, and having something in front of you that says, you know, and it can be small. It doesn't have to be some massive milestone. It can be, for the next year, I would like to, you know, have these things happen in my career, or I'd like to see these things. You know, it really, and I do this, by the way. And as I've gotten older, I've learned the power in that, the value in it, of actually writing down my goals each year. And it is career goals for sure, but there's other goals I write down. And then I measure it, and I'm not hard on myself, by the way. I don't, you know, life is a journey, but I actually write it down to say, okay, how did I do? And what do I want to do differently as I enter the next year? So be kind to yourself on that journey, and resilience and strength. I actually noted those words were on Mercado Global's website. There were a couple of words, and I can't state enough how important that is, particularly as you enter the phase we're in right now with the pandemic. Like, these two words just embody something so important for all of us to think about as we go forward, because there are twists and turns, and we just hit them, right? This is one of them. And mistakes will happen, but it is part of that path to each person's success.
Absolutely. I think, and right now more than ever, it's everyone's practicing their agility really to, pivot into a new mindset and be, adaptable really to this really critical time of change in everyone's lives. So as you were saying, just in terms of setting new goals and, that never really ends for any of us.
Right.
Yeah, and to that point too, it's like we're all here today and we're here virtually. So we're all able to adapt. We're all leaders in one form or another. And it's, Kate, you bring up good points about talking about, just set the goals, push your foot on the gas and the pedal and like just go for it. And, to that, like I want to bring it to Nikki because you have a very unique story. And can you share with us your entrepreneurial journey and a little bit more about you?
Of course. So it's really interesting, Kate. I think when you were mentioning what success looks like, I think that that's a perfect part of what my like kind of up, down, side to side, take a couple steps back to go a bunch of steps forward journey has been from an entrepreneurial perspective, but also in my kind of corporate journey as well. So prior to about 5 years ago, I was working in a corporate space. I was at Bain Capital, and prior to that at Bain & Company, and following what I thought were the rules to success. I was getting my resume perfectly where I wanted it to be and taking all the right steps and really trying my best to put my foot all the way down on a gas pedal. But I learned that that gas pedal wasn't mine. So I was really exerting so much effort and energy and not going on the path that was my own. So I found myself in a spot where I realized if I looked to the leaders ahead of me, there weren't many leaders that looked like me as a woman, but also as a woman of color. There weren't many folks that were the model of what the version of leadership would be that looked like me. So I decided I needed to take that energy and that gas that I was putting to try to figure out how this was happening, that I wasn't able to succeed in all the hard work I was doing and all the hours that I was putting in and all the goals I was writing down and all the envisioning that I was putting out there, why it wasn't necessarily working. And a big part of that was to really look around rather than just looking inside and seeing, okay, why are all these things that I'm doing not working? And so particularly for my entrepreneurial journey, it became, how can I, one, heal whatever my issues have been and the walls I run up against, but also realizing there's no way I can be the only one. There's no way I can be the woman that's standing there saying, I've worked just as hard as this guy next to me, but I'm not getting further. And really trying to understand the systems and structures in play that are making that such a difficult journey. And so I dove into women's leadership and the dynamics of women's leadership, just like I dove into all the dynamics of business in school and in my career of understanding management consulting and of really diving into asset management and understanding all the dynamics that went in there, but really shining a light on the stuff that's been in the shadows for so long. So particularly for me, I work intentionally both with individuals and with organizations to identify where those of us who aren't able to really shine fully and authentically as Mercado's authentic core values. I think that that's such a beautiful thing. I think it's the thing that is the activator of success for each and every one of us to find that path that is ours rather than trying to be the prototype of what a leader looks like. I always talk about Don Draper being what I always thought looked like success in a corporate space. And I don't know about you, but like, I'm never going to be Don Draper. As much as I try, as much as I could try to memorize all the tips and tricks from Mad Men, it was never going to be me. And so I really encourage people as they think about whatever their journey looks like, whether that is to go and try to figure out where your gift can shine the most, or within your organization that you're in to find where your strengths can shine to their utmost. It's really to come to terms with the fact that like success for you and your leadership is who you are, not who you are relative to someone else, and how you can be more like that model of a leader.
Well, thank you for that. And I think it's quite interesting. I feel the same as you. I don't think I'm going to be Don Draper. So I'm just like, no, I don't think that's for me. As much as I think I can go that route, I think I'll, steer the other direction. So, how do we know whether that's like the right goal? Like when you decided, you said that nobody looked like you, like, were you scared? Like, how did you feel about that? And, you've worked with individuals and corporations now. Like, how was that journey for you?
It was very scary at times.
Okay.
I think when Kate was talking about the fact that you have to really normalize failure and be comfortable with the fact that if you're not going to go all out, you're not going to succeed. And if you fail, all that is a learning experience. And so again, if you're somebody like me that was trying to find the right move at every point, that comes from a fear of failure. And so to normalize that experience of like, if I'm going to stumble, if I'm going to stub my toe, the thing that you pay attention to, again, Kate, I feel like all your words are coming right back here, that resilience, that you have the ability to stub your toe, get back up, and find a way to notice where you stubbed it, work around it, or step a little higher so you don't stub it that time. So yeah, I think there are pieces of this that, especially again, with these models that we see of entrepreneurship, that it's gonna all of a sudden happen overnight. Not true. Not true for any entrepreneur that I've spoken to. And a lot of times, if you have a PR person, they're going to talk about the really great parts of your journey, but the failures are the things that actually teach you way more than your successes.
So maybe I'll open this up to actually all three of you. What was a failure that you thought or that you've experienced and was like, well, am I really going to overcome this, or I got this? Like, whoever wants to take it.
Let's see, a failure that I think as many times in my career that I've been asked to do something that I thought was out of my range. And quite frankly, I didn't think I was like this, but I would almost, push against it and say, I don't know if I'm the person, right? And I remember one of those conversations. I had just come back from probably my third maternity. I think it was on this one. 3 kids. And so I was asked to get involved in a big technology project, and it wasn't my thing. It wasn't, I had a BlackBerry at the time, just a little while ago. I was like, like I'm not that hot. And so I remember resisting, and my boss at the time said, "You're the only one to do it." That was the comment. I never forgot it. And I looked at him, I said, "Okay, I'll march forward, and I'll move into it." And I had no idea what all kinds of what the architect did. And I mean, it was a huge learning curve. But at some point I embraced it and I went into it. And I have to say it was one of the more rewarding parts of my career because I was just so out of my element. And that has happened multiple times. It's been those pushes in my career. But, I would separately say, if you talk to some of the most incredible leaders and people that I have been inspired by, rarely will they tell you that they got there because it was all easy. I do remember the old CEO of the group. He retired. He was an inspiration to me. And I remember him saying that he was fired from a very high profile job and how he went home. He couldn't believe it happened. And he's sitting there and he got a phone call, and it was Blackstone. And then he joined Black. And it was just, that is part of the journey. Is sometimes it's even humiliation. Sometimes it's really being, just truly pivoting to another direction, and then picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and knowing that you're going to be okay. It's uncomfortable. And that's maybe how I would put it. I talked about somebody else's failure more than mine. I got it.
I'm happy to go with one of mine. So I will never forget, there was a time where I was going into my kind of annual 360 review and killed it, or at least I thought I had killed it for the whole year, and had all of my receipts, had all of my negotiation points. I had exactly how I saw the next year going. I had visioned it out. I had set all my goals, and I walked in, and the review was great. It was helpful, but I got to a point where I was trying to advocate for what I thought my value was, what I thought the work I was doing equated to in the market, but also within the organization. And the response that I got was, "Who do you think you are?" And I remember being like, oh, okay, so that was, I fell on my face a little bit. I thought I had that all ready to go. Where are you coming from with that? And it was a beautiful thing in 2 ways. I think in one way it was, who do I think I am, asking myself that question. And I came to the table ready to say, here are all the great things I'm doing. Here's the job description I have. Here are the other things I'm doing. Here's how I think we can move forward. Here's our path to bring our team to a better, more efficient and effective path. But it also was the thing that I think activated some of me to say, wait a second, maybe who I think I am is not within the confines of this space. So I walked out. I'm not going to act like I didn't tear up. I'm not going to act like I didn't feel like I was this big, but also it was the thing that was the catapult for me to start saying, wait a second, who do I think I am relative to who somebody else thinks I am, or who I think I need to be in order to be successful? So yeah, if we could rewind. Did I feel good? No, not at all. And there's a little part of me that's getting all hot talking about it now, but that stumble and that failure and that somebody being like, was a beautiful signal. Even at the time it was awful, was a signal to be like, okay, maybe you should change course. Maybe you should figure out who you want to be, who you are in this space, and if you can be the person that you want to be in this space.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think if it never seems like things are going wrong, or you never make mistakes, you definitely, I guarantee you, it's a cliche, but you're not achieving your potential either. You're not achieving the potential greatness that you could have. And I think, one example of where actually failure or crisis can be such a incubator for growth and greatness is, I think of Mercado Global has been around long enough to have now been through 2 recessions. I guess we're still in the middle of the second one, but both of them have been real pivot points for the organization. The first recession, you felt like such a huge crisis overnight. Our market entirely went away. And it was actually by that happening that it forced us to get so smart, and it forced us to sit back and think about our model and what did we need to thrive in the recession. And that actually required structural changes that allowed us to have really fast growth coming out of the recession. And we probably wouldn't have had the courage or felt the need to make those structural changes had it not been a moment of crisis. And we're currently experiencing something very similar where, the crisis of the pandemic has forced us to really come together as a team, reach out to all of our partners, and pivot hard to be there for our partner artisans, to figure out how could we help even more at a time of such great need, and be part of the global solution to the crisis that the global community is facing. And all of the changes that we're doing now are not only helping us get through this period, but I know will put us in such a strong position for impact coming out. So I think, one of the things that I've learned is when crisis hits, rather than get scared, get smart and think about how is this forcing you to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it in a way that you haven't had to think about it before.
That's beautiful. I really think that, and Mercado Global is an amazing way of getting smart. I mean, when the pandemic hit, their COVID-19 responses, I've got them right here, and decided to pivot from handbags, right? And amazing ones to masks these days. And it's like, they got smart about it, right? It's like, and they're protecting, all of us. They're protecting the postal workers. We sent them to Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx in their ICU unit. Like, it's amazing what we've done and what you guys have been, what you guys have done with all of this. And another area where I think you guys got smart at, or were able to thrive off of, was like corporate sponsorships, right? So Ruth, like kind of expanding further on that, what's the impact of corporate philanthropic initiatives that you guys can share with us that Mercado has benefited from?
Well, one of the things that's just been so special for us and such a source of strength is realizing, in the early days of the pandemic, at first it felt scary. And then once we started to put together a plan and started moving and started reaching out, asking for help and partnership. I think that's the key thing, asking for partnership. In what we were doing to respond to the pandemic, it was just amazing to see the response. And so, everyone's been hit hard, but everyone's come together. So for our corporate partners, there's so many ways, so many of them have helped us get through this period, starting with our retail partners like Free People and Stitch Fix and Nordstrom that have picked up our buy one, give one masks and carried them on their websites and helped us sell thousands of masks that funded us to donate even thousands more to all the places that you just mentioned, Jen, was just so amazing. And realizing, it was a way to help them too, because they were, staying profitable through their sales, but it also helped us together do some good, which was great. And then with our corporate partners, Equitable, PIMCO, so many of our corporate partners, as their staff started to come back, they placed orders for 5,000 masks for all their staff, and worked with us to identify, okay, 5,000 masks, these are all going to migrant children, the children of migrant farm workers in California and Texas, and thinking about, not only how to keep their staff safe, but how to help keep other at-risk Americans safe too. Which is just so amazing. Another partner, Levi Strauss, They have, we knew that they had tens of thousands of dead stock denim at their factories in Mexico. And we just called them and asked if we could have it to help fund the production of the masks we were donating. And they just said yes, which was amazing. I think Julie might be on this call, so I might get in trouble, but even Free People was saying, we have some extra hand sanitizer that we could send to your partner communities in Guatemala, which we're still figuring out the logistics of that. But, it's just so exciting to see how everyone has come together to help each other. And it's not just about helping us and our partner communities, it's about helping each other. I'm sure every single employee at Blackstone wants to be part of the solution, and to be able to leverage the resources that our partners have, volunteer resources, philanthropic dollars, corporate purchasing dollars. It's exciting, and it's really given me a lot of energy in the middle of this global crisis.
That's all amazing. I'm so happy that, I'd love to, can you share that energy with me? Because I need some of that too. So yeah, I think it's just amazing to hear where you guys have come from, how corporate partnerships, and, to that point, Nikki, I know that in your journey as well, you want to share with the group a little bit more about how you've done that?
Yeah. So in my corporate career, actually a big part of my role became, because it was something I got excited about, but became launching what we called Bain Capital's community partnership in the later stages, but was part of our philanthropic efforts on a large scale. So when we launched the initiative, we were working with 250 different organizations, not only from a financial perspective, which I think is a really important part of how corporate organizations can put influence out into the world and really have those dollars amplify themselves within organizations like Mercado Global, right? Like that particular piece, the financial piece, is so important. But the piece that I found to be one of the most activating moments for every single person across the entire organization was the ability to tap into your intellectual resources as well within your organization. So it's not just throw your money here, but also what are the unique strengths that you have? If you work in your accounting department, how can you work with an organization to really optimize their books? How can you get there? And how can you bring that to the table? Because so often that is so much more beneficial and so much more impactful than the dollars that you might be able to pull out of your pocket and give to someone as well. So having those things work together. And then the other part that I always like to talk about, especially in what I think of as kind of a new generation of how people can activate their philanthropy and make it kind of the return on the investment be even higher, is to start younger, have people earlier in their career, have people really have that personal connection and that story, so that it becomes something that it's not just, let's get that fundraising for this year. It's something to create a relationship that can then exponentially grow larger and stronger financially, but also from an engagement perspective, because the way that we live in this world right now, that is such a social world, whether it be on the internet right now or through Zoom. Nice to meet all of you. But we bring folks with us when we have that personal connection. We are able to have a relationship with these organizations, and it's not just something that we add to our taxes at the end of the year.
Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I think the silver lining to something like this is also realizing the added potential or added value that we can all have within the world. So given that, shifting back to how do we look at the future leaders of tomorrow? Kate, in your respective role, how does your position allow you to influence the industry for the empowering leaders of tomorrow?
So, I would start with my journey a little bit. I've been incredibly fortunate to have mentors and sponsors along the way before, quite frankly, I even knew they were a thing. So, even back to college, I had this math professor, Dr. Jane Upshaw, who I'm still friends with. Granted, it's over Facebook, but we still talk. And I had an internship in college where I had these 3 women that I worked under, and they would bring me into meetings. And one such meeting, they were responsible for investing the pensions and savings plans, was Blackstone. And so Blackstone came in, and I mean, it just, the head of the group would actually stop a meeting to explain a concept to me with all these people in the room. She didn't care I was an intern. And I continue to have these incredible people that have such a lasting impact. I will never forget what they did. I won't forget them, and whether they even know. And you try and thank someone like that, but I think there's people out there that just want to do good, and they want to have that impact. And so I've continued my journey, and at Blackstone, I've had these people over, the sponsors, the mentors, and it's a natural thing. So it is important to have those relationships. And so here I am, and I can't thank all these people that did what they did for me in a way that, that could really repay, right? So the only thing I can do is give back. And that's the journey I feel like I'm on. And I hope most senior people are in that place where it's, it is about empowering the people around you and having the impact on these talented men and women that are really all looking to find their footing and get their place and elevate to the full potential that they have. You mentioned I am involved in a lot at my workplace. I'm on the Women's Initiative of Blackstone. I actually started a Women in Finance. We have a pretty large finance group. And so we have these 8 women, they're just fantastic women, all titles. We all come together, and we pivoted very quickly in this new world. And it's been a lot of fun, quite frankly, getting to know them all. But I'm also a diversity champion, which meant with everything happening with the social unrest and the inequities that were happening, we also needed to pivot there. And so we had listening circles, and Jennifer attended one and was really instrumental as a partner with me on leading these listening circles and discussions. And it's very rewarding to bring that personal side into your business place. The goal is to give back. And I would just say, while I am in a position to influence, it's so important for young people to find their voice and ask. There's nothing more. And I remember being young and I was like, oh, these senior people don't want to hear from me. They do. They really do. They want to know about you. And so I've grown up in an environment where the team I have a fantastic team. I'm very lucky to have a fantastic team, and they're diverse. And when we go in and have a meeting, I invite my whole team in. Titles go out the door. I'm not interested in what someone's title is. If you're in that room, you're there to contribute, and that's it. We're all equals when we come in there. And so it's a bit of empowering people and allowing them to get their confidence to go on their journey. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it, but for me, this is my journey, and I've met some really good people along the way. And by the way, they inspire me. So there you have it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to that point, I don't think that there's any, just based off of diversity and inclusion, and really speaking to that a little bit further, especially now, and how we're really focusing that on a larger scale within, a respective company and across all industries as well, and how you can mentor someone and allow them to also find their voice as well, I think is critical in terms of empowering them, to be a future leader in their industry and, finding their own niche as well. I mean, given that, we all have, various titles, I know that imposter syndrome is another hot topic, especially as women as well, and, how that conversation has really come into fruition, even recently. So Nikki, to you, as a life coach, as we grow in our careers, how do you encourage people to find themselves and get out of, an imposter syndrome mindset?
Well, I think Kate set that up beautifully, completely unplanned. I love it. I think that there is a part of this that so often when you are living your life as yourself, you have no idea how many people you're influencing just by doing that. So as you were saying, that the person that has influenced you so much might not have even realized by doing what she was doing, she was really amplifying your message, amplifying your journey, so you didn't feel like you were alone. And I think a lot of that is this imposter syndrome dynamic that we have. It's so often that someone's going to find out that I'm the only one in this room that doesn't belong here. And really, you belong there. Like Kate was saying with her team, you belong there because you're there. And you're not going to be able to be, I mentioned Don Draper before, but you're not going to be able to be the successful or leader level version of any other person in that room, because the leader that you're meant to be is only embodied in who you are. And so often we're trying to compare ourselves and our abilities to everyone else, or even more so, we've seen that metric of, that women need to have 100% of the bullet points on the job description to apply for it, where guys have to have about 60%. If you get to a spot where you're seeing yourself saying, well, I have to have already done this and succeeded at this to even give it a shot, you're not allowing yourself to show how you are doing this that can then amplify and give permission to others who are feeling like maybe I don't belong here. So the ability to, I think, especially as women, a lot of times to center ourselves and to say we're experts or really great at something is something that we've been conditioned to very young, not to say, not to take up too much space, not to be too loud. But when you're able to do that, and able to do that specifically if we have this people-pleasing tendency that a lot of us, again, have been paired with, that be small but also take care of everyone else before yourself. If you think about showing up in large, expansive ways as yourself, that gives you the permission, if you are a people pleaser, to tap into a little bit of that and hack into that you can understand that if you do take up space, you're making room and giving permission to others to show up as themselves. So I think, at least when I work with people on an individual level, and then also with organizations that are having this dynamic of people being afraid to speak up if they don't have whatever, like, letters at the end of their name or whatever level within their profile, that they feel like they don't belong in the room. It's to really be able to model that yourself, to be able to show up as a full person, to be able to show up as an imperfect person, because that is, like, leaders, again, we talked about leaders aren't perfect. And the more we can showcase the fact that leaders are flawed human beings, and that's what makes them great leaders and also great human beings, the better that we can all show up and get rid of that imposter syndrome that just feels so old. It feels so dated. It feels like, can we just like flick that voice off our shoulder now? So I always encourage, one of the exercises, because I am a coach and I want to make sure that you, if you are navigating this right now, is I really encourage you, there's a book called Taming the Gremlin. It is not a new book. But there's an exercise in there that I call the inner critic when I work with people. And I actually have people write down the things that they're saying about themselves when they're feeling like they're not enough. Because as Kate mentioned before, the power of putting it on paper and actually seeing it, it can be a difficult thing. But when you see the words and the things you're saying about yourself, the next step is being able to actually analyze, is that true? Is that real? And if somebody that was your biggest fan saw that, what would they say to it? Because so often when we don't put it on paper and we don't acknowledge it and don't shine a light on it, it can fester and take over and silence us and make us small. So I really encourage you, if you're feeling impostery in any kind of way, to shine a light on it and say, hey, hold on a second. Are you real? Or are you a manifestation of all the things that are making it so I can't shine as myself?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think, it's really finding that voice within yourself, and really giving light to that as well. Just to open up the dialogue between Kate and Ruth, have you ever felt, a level of imposter syndrome, and what has been your strategy to try and overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different names, there's different terms used to describe this in different places. And a term I'm familiar with is the concept of monkey mind. But I think we all have this issue of, negative internal dialogue, and to really thrive and be able to step up to the challenges and opportunities life has, you have to figure out how to recognize that, that negative inner critic, and you maybe can never get it to go away, but you could be in control of it. You don't have to let it control you. And we all have something. And there was something that I think Nikki said that I really appreciated, which is that I think it's such a sadness that so many amazing people, including many amazing women leaders, when they speak, even on panels like this, we talk about all the good stuff. But the reality is everyone has had huge challenges. We all have dealt with our inner critic. We have all had imposter syndrome. And so recognizing that that's normal, we all deal with it, and it doesn't have to control us. It doesn't have to hold us back, I think is really key. And as women, we have faced many more challenges. I remember being 21 years old and trying to raise money to start a nonprofit. And, I don't know if it would have been that much easier if I was 28, but, there's all kinds of challenges that people face. And if you can see it, you can make it happen. Won't necessarily be easy, but you can make it happen.
Yeah, I would say the times when it would stand out is when I've been asked to step out of my comfort zone, and get into something. And I would reflect and say, well, why am I being asked to go there? Do they not know that I don't know? So it's like you question, are you going to do well? Or you're not going to do well? Did that person have false confidence? I absolutely. And by the way, I started my career in audit, and left because I decided I didn't want to be an auditor. And so I joined Blackstone and ran this career in a totally different direction. And I was asked to head up internal audit, and which I stepped into at the beginning of 18. And look, it was new territory. I left something I knew well, maybe too well, right? And so I stepped into a new area with new people and new, and it was intimidating. But I've been around the block at this point long enough to know, just don't BS anybody. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. And just put it out there. And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, I've realized there's no shame in that. And because there's a lot of things I do know. And so it's a bit of leaning into it. And I think surrounding yourself with great people that will inspire you and motivate you, because it is a team effort. And I think that those times when I've questioned myself, I've always remembered a team around me. And sometimes it was them believing in me, and sometimes it was me just knowing we were all going to do it together. And that carried us over that finish line. But enough times of going through that experience, you question it less. You can get there. It's just a question of how.
Exactly. And to that point, I think it's always stepping outside of your comfort zone as well, and what's the next step that you yourself can take, to really grow as a person, long term. Ruth, a question for you. So going back to, giving back, I know that many of us, we feel like, on a smaller scale, how can we really drive forward in terms of giving back to the greater good? We can feel like we are, minute in a very large world, and what are the smaller steps that we can take, to really empower ourselves on an individual level to give back to the greater good?
Well, as I said earlier, I really believe that there's such a power in recognizing that each of us can change the world by you just start by taking your corner of the earth where you are and doing what you can. What is yours to do that's within your reach? And recognizing that you can change the world for the better using a lot of different resources in a lot of different ways. So philanthropy is obviously really important. And that's one piece of the energy you put out into the world. If money is energy, and if you choose to put your energy into causes that are making the world a better place, you are actively helping improve things. But it's just one form of the energy that you have. Women have tremendous energy through their purchases. In the US, women make 80% of household purchasing decisions. Boy, if we all used our purchasing power to vote for companies that empowered women, that promoted women, that didn't require women to do 100% of the things on the checklist, but 60%, just like men, we would live in quite a different world. So I encourage you to think about your purchasing power. What kind of world do you want to vote for? Your philanthropic dollars. Another thing about philanthropy that I'm sure everyone knows is, when you give, you're not only helping make the world a better place, but at least for me, when I'm donating to a cause I care about, it makes me feel there's a happiness that you get out of that and out of that connection. So I encourage you to think about what you could do. Think about your volunteering. So often I hear from people at business schools and in the corporate sector and finance, they're like, oh, maybe I want to help make the world a better place. Maybe I should quit my job and go work for a nonprofit. And if that's what you're called to do, then absolutely do that. Although hopefully I'm not seeing that to anyone in Kate's chain of command, but I would argue that actually the most important way you could do good, assuming you are happy where you are, is join a board, join a junior board, volunteer. Gosh, the nonprofit sector, we don't have a shortage of people applying for jobs to work for nonprofits. We have a shortage of people that are willing to use their networks to make introductions, to help rally resources, to share their expertise in finance and in HR, some of the things that Nikki spoke to. So really inventory all the ways that you could be using your energy to help make the world a better place and start. And then, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, think about how you could take people with you when you do that.
Exactly.
I'm glad you threw her in there.
I had to. She's my favorite Ruth. What could I say?
Agreed. I think we can all attest to that as well. But, you know, again, being more of a conscious consumer, you know, and how are we really practicing that, you know, especially looking at different organizations and what their global impact is, you know. So Ruth, you've done a phenomenal job in terms of your footprint in today's world, you know, and how we can all really align to give back to the greater good. So thank you. So we did want to open it up to the Q&A for everyone as well.
Yes. So we have, we've got some questions here, and whoever has a few questions will have about 5 minutes or so to go through Q&A. Let's see what we've got for everybody. So someone asked, how do you approach advocating for yourself versus getting others to advocate on your behalf? So this can go for anybody.
I feel like Nikki's the expert. I'm happy to jump in, but I'll try to answer on that one. I do talk to people about that. It was hard for me in my earlier career. It's like bragging a little bit without sounding like you're bragging. And so I do remember seeing the head of one of our marketing groups. He was just wildly successful at this. And I took note. And so he would put together a deck, and here's our accomplishments, and he'd bring his team in, and he'd meet with the head of the CEO of the group. And he just got recognition because he knew how to spin the story, not spin it, but tell the story in a way that got recognition and credit without overdoing it in this me type situation. You know, it was a we, and we did it. And I think you do want to get some of that. Also find your relationships, prove yourself out there so that people do talk about you. Our firm is small enough that when you're a really high performer, people talk about it and you're noted. And you know, do not underestimate that power of relationships and people seeing you perform.
I'm happy to hop in on this one a little bit too. I didn't want to go right away. But I think, you know, advocating for yourself as well is something, especially if I'm making an assumption, maybe you're a woman, but a lot of times, again, it's part of that dynamic where we think that, how dare I talk about how great I am? And I think there's a part of this too, that if it still feels uncomfortable to kind of humble brag or however you want to do that, even if you have a beautiful deck with you, which I think is definitely the way, that's how I tell most people to do it. I'm like, make that business case of what you're bringing to the party. What's the business of you? But I also think really mapping it to the business, the outcomes of the business, and also the fact that if you can get that advocacy and that appreciation of what you're doing, how that can help the business move forward. So not just, hey, I really want that recognition, but if we're able to elevate based on what I've done, here are the other things that I can do as well. And here are the other folks that are going to be impacted by that too. So if you're feeling a little uncomfortable by shining that spotlight on you and saying, hey, look at me, this is all the great stuff I'm doing, I think you can do that. Just like Kate was saying, bring the business case with you, but also if you want to, and again, bring your team in there, but even if your team isn't the bodies in the room, bring the opportunity and the future that you're bringing and the success and the profitability that you're bringing as well, because it's really hard to turn down the opportunity to really make things, not just here's the great stuff I've done, but here are the great things that can come out of the work that I've done if I can continue to do more of it, or elevate another person that can step into that space and learn from where I've come from as well.
I find between Nikki and Kate, I'm sure Ruth has her own, you know, opinions. I'm like, great, I needed to start taking all these notes on all of these things that I need to take back to work with me. But it's all amazing. We have a few other questions here. Somebody mentioned finding your strengths can be difficult. Yes, I can totally relate to that. Do you have any advice for people to help identify their steps and how they can apply those strengths to further their goals?
I'm happy. I'm like,
I know you're like waiting.
I can do this real quick. So it's the first thing I do when I work with coaching clients, actually. I feel like the first thing we need to do, whether you're doing women's leadership work or you're doing diversity and inclusion work, or just any kind of leadership, really understanding where you are, is awareness. And I think awareness of your strengths is the best thing you can get to know about yourself, because so often we're not encouraged to lean into them because it's seen as selfish or self-aggrandizing in some way. So I actually have a whole toolkit that I use that helps people tap into where their strengths are. There's diagnostics. So if those of you that love data, I've got diagnostics that we use that we really tap into where your strengths are, but also, and Ruth, you were talking energy and it like lit me up. Also where your energy lights up specifically for you in the day. So if you are a data-driven person, you love that stuff and you can be just cranking out all different types of spreadsheets and you're all in VLOOKUPs and you love that stuff and you could do that for 12 hours and it doesn't drain you, but standing in front of a room for 5 minutes exhausts you, that's an important thing to know, because it doesn't mean let's put you in front of more rooms for longer. It means really tapping into where your energy can amplify itself, so then you can not only do the things that really amplify your energy and sustain your energy, but also that you can do them in alignment with the strengths that come through in the diagnostics. So as somebody that just like loves that outside piece that can come in and help you look at yourself rather than saying, here, I think I'm good at this. It's like, hey, here are a whole bunch of ways that tell me to. So if you are interested in any of that, like I have a whole like page on my website that has my favorite ones. So I'm happy to share that with you. But I feel like there's definitely a lot of information for you to get to know yourself a lot better, because we don't have a class in school that's like, hey, let me get to know myself.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would say on that is, I'm always really surprised that particularly young people, but not just young people, are afraid of performance evaluations and afraid of feedback and get so defensive and like it's such a negative. And I'm like, for me, oh my gosh, what a gift. And the more feedback you could get early in your career to help you get clarity on your strengths and where you have opportunities to grow, boy, you will, if you listen, if you are open and you accept that and you thank people that give you feedback so that they're actually going to give you more feedback, you will then have a roadmap for how to grow professionally. And how to understand your strengths, but also where you need to build new skills. And so within our organization, we try to have a really big focus on professional development and performance evaluations as a tool to build up the team. So I would say to a person early in their career that that's one of the big focuses. And if you receive feedback in a defensive way, people will stop giving you feedback because nobody wants to, it's hard to give feedback. So if you want more of it, you have to actually actively thank people for their feedback, both when it's good and when it's bad.
I'm not adding, they nailed it.
Just wanted to make sure, Kate. Okay, so we've have time for one more question. Actually, this one's for Ruth. Ruth, are there opportunities to get more involved with Mercado Global, either via donation, money, or time?
Absolutely, lots of ways to get involved. I encourage everyone to go to our website, mercadoglobal.org, sign up for our e-newsletter, and there's a whole list of ways to get involved. You can purchase our buy one, give one masks, purchase products, gifts. There's information on if you think that your company might be interested in sourcing masks for their staff or as corporate gifts, let us know there. We also have an Impact Council, and this is the first event of the Impact Council, which is so amazing. So if you'd like to get more involved with the Impact Council, please email us. You could email Bryce, B-R-I-C-E at mercadoglobal.org, or contact us through our Facebook site. Lots of different ways to get involved, and we have our big virtual gala coming up in December. So that's another way. If you sign up for our e-newsletter, you'll hear more about that as well.
Yes, and if anybody's interested in the Impact Council, I will make sure that I share my details, and we can get in touch and we can go from there. But I really want to say, Ruth, Kate, and Nikki, it was absolutely amazing having you guys. I'm so happy that you guys volunteered to be here for our first conversation, our quarterly panel series. I'm sure it won't be the last that I see any of you. And it was just a really impactful discussion, and I hope that everyone who's listening in today can take a lot from your experiences, your knowledge, and all the advice that you were able to give us. Thank you to the audience for your donations and support. And also, I don't want to forget, tonight's raffle winner is Sam Ciccone. So Sam, if you're on, congrats. We will definitely be sending you a set of 5 masks. So you'll be getting that soon. And then wanted to point out, so for those who donated $50 or more, you're going to be receiving exclusive access to a virtual insight trip to meet Mercado Global partner artisans in a virtual office in Panachal, Guatemala. And for those who did not, you know, and are now interested, you can feel free to donate the difference to our fundraising page, and we'll make sure to get you added to the list. So I just want to say again, thank you all so much for being here. Kate, Nikki, Ruth, and you know, Claudia, I'm so happy we could do this together.
Thank you, Jen and
Thank
Claudia.
you, ladies.
What a pleasure.
Truly.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I hope you guys have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.